The target doesn't suspect. After the exchange, he's finished. That was the message. Just a few lines, buried deep inside a signal packet bouncing between 3 encrypted servers. I wasn't supposed to see it. Hell, it wasn't even part of my assigned intercept. But I did see it. And I knew exactly who the target was. Me. I leaned back in my chair, fingers frozen above the keyboard, like somehow not moving would make the words vanish. But they didn't. They burned, branded into my brain like fire. I wasn't reading about someone else's betrayal this time. This wasn't Langley or Caracas or some cartel rat stabbing his handler. This was personal. My wife, the woman I met in the smoke and chaos of a Bolivian sting-op, the woman I fought beside, bled for, loved, was planning to erase me. Let me rewind. My name's David Carter. I used to be a CIA analyst. Not a spy. Not some rooftop-hopping Jason Bourne. No. I was the guy behind the screen, putting together puzzles made from broken code and blurry satellite feeds. But then came Bolivia. They needed boots and brains on the ground, so they paired me with Laura. She was indescribable. Operatives like her don't come with warning labels. They come with seduction in their eyes and a Glock in their purse. We weren't lovers at first, just partners under deep cover. Married on paper, sharing an apartment in La Paz, surveilling smuggling routes and tracking cartel money. That fake marriage? It started feeling real. She'd lean her head on my shoulder after long ops. I'd make her coffee the way she liked. We had routines, jokes, memories. 2 years. 2 damn years of trusting her with my life. Then came the message. I saw it on a rainy Tuesday night, scanning leftover chatter from a drop zone recon. It was in a secondary encryption layer, meant to slip under the radar. But something about the timing bugged me, so I cracked it. Target doesn't suspect. After exchange, he's finished. That phrase, target doesn't suspect, it's agency speak. We used it for high-value eliminations. Clean. Fast. Final. And then the punch to the gut. The drop zone mentioned in the log was mine. Our cover-op. Laura was setting me up. I sat there for over an hour, staring at that message. Rain drummed against the apartment window behind me, but I couldn't hear it. All I could hear was Lara's laugh, how she always said I was too careful. How she joked I'd make a great mole, because no one notices the analyst. Turns out, she noticed. She'd been noticing everything. And that meant one thing. She never stopped playing the game. I was just her long con. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from fury. I should have seen it. The late-night calls. The missions she said were above my clearance. The way she always checked my phone when I left the room, but never let me near hers. So I did what I do best. I went quiet. Over the next 48 hours, I accessed every secure node I had left. Surveillance logs, operation files, personnel rosters. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just followed the trail, unraveling everything Laura had hidden from me, everything she thought was buried. And what I found made my blood run cold. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was freelancing for a third agency. Not Russia. Not China. Someone darker. Unlisted. And she'd been feeding them classified intel. Through me. Through my clearances. My terminal. My trust. She was the perfect mole. And I was the perfect fool. But this fool has claws. And I wasn't going to go down quietly. No. If Laura wanted to play a long game, she just walked into the wrong match. Laura came into my life like a storm. No warning. No mercy. It was Santa Cruz, Bolivia, summer of 2017. I was supposed to stay in Honduras, but someone upstairs decided my analytical skills were needed in the field. They didn't say why. Didn't say with whom. Just one name on the briefing. Agent L. Garcia. Direct contact on site. Cover, married couple. I arrived at night. An old Toyota Land Cruiser was waiting along with her. Laura. Cut-off denim shorts, mirrored aviators, and a cigarette that barely smoked. She glanced at me quick, assessing, and said the first thing. If you can't shoot, at least don't get in the way. I told her I only shoot with words. She smiled barely. The first few days were all business. Tense, clipped. She didn't trust me, and I didn't try to force it. But over time, in stuffy hotel rooms, on stakeouts, under crossfire, something began to shift. Laura knew how to keep her composure. How to vanish. How to read people. I didn't see it at first. I thought that's just who she was. But when she first touched my shoulder during a tense moment and whispered, "I've got your back," I believed her. There's a night I'll never forget. We were waiting for a defector, an insider with a flash drive full of cartel data. 6 hours in an abandoned movie theater. It was hot, dark, silent. Our contact never showed. Laura sat beside me, smoking. Then she said, "You know why they make us pretend to be married?" I said something about cover. She looked at me longer than necessary. Because trust is the easiest way to hide betrayal. I didn't get it then. I thought it was just a line. She was testing me, watching how I'd react. And I, foolishly, laughed. She joined in. But her eyes didn't. After that, something changed. We weren't just working together. We started being a couple, even off mission. Shared dinners. Inside jokes. Laura started wearing my t-shirt around the apartment. Said it was more comfortable. I didn't see the web she was weaving. Weeks passed. One night, she opened up. At least what I believed was her truth. She said she grew up in Venezuela, escaped to the U.S. under a false name, and joined the CIA almost by accident. Too good at killing not to be useful. I was stunned and hypnotized, but there were odd moments. She always closed her laptop when I walked in. Never let me see who she was texting. Once, she told me, "You're my husband only for cover. Don't go poking where you'll get burned." I should have paid attention. Instead, I fell in love. La Paz sits high in the Andes, surrounded by jagged mountains and secrets. It's the kind of city where people disappear into the mist and don't come back. Perfect for deep cover. We moved into a modest apartment near Sapacachi, 1 bedroom, small balcony, creaky plumbing. To the neighbors, we were an American couple working for a nonprofit. To the agency, we were shadows in a city rotting with cartel influence. To each other, that line was starting to blur. At first, we kept the act tight. Shared groceries. Casual kisses in public. Arguments staged just loud enough to be overheard. We even picked pet names for each other. Hers for me was Doc, a nod to my analyst days. But somewhere between the fake fights and the real breakfasts, the mask started sticking. She'd fall asleep with her head on my chest after long nights decrypting cartel chatter. I started leaving her notes with coded jokes only we understood. We moved in sync. The rhythm of us felt natural. Real. But it wasn't real. Not all of it. It started small. A contact name she wouldn't explain. A burner phone I didn't recognize. Once, she came home late. Hair damp, knuckles bruised. "I slipped," she said. Another time, I caught her scrubbing metadata from a USB that wasn't part of our backup. She muttered, not meeting my eyes. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. I told myself, we're in the field. Everyone hides something. It's part of the game. But Laura played that game like she wrote the rules. She started locking her go bag, something field agents almost never do unless they're running dual ops. I noticed she'd always step out to take certain calls, even when we were alone. And when I asked about them, she'd smile and press a finger to my lips. "You analyze. I act. That's the deal, remember?" Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and find her standing at the balcony, just watching. No weapon, no phone, just her silhouette in the dark, like she was waiting for something or someone. One night, I followed her. She told me she was meeting an informant in Zona Sur. Said I should stay home and scrub audio logs. But something in her tone felt off. Too polished. Too prepared. So I waited 10 minutes, then tailed her in a cab. She didn't go to Zona Sur. She went to an alley behind a bookstore near the old market. She wasn't alone. A tall man, gringo, clean-shaven, military posture, handed her a small envelope and kissed her cheek like it was second nature. I didn't confront her. Not then. I just filed it away. Another shadow. Another crack. But later that night, she came home like nothing happened. Sat in my lap, ran her fingers through my hair, whispered, "You make this life bearable." And in that moment, I almost believed her again. That was her gift. Not just lying, but making the lie feel like love. There's something they don't teach you in analyst school. How to trust someone when every part of you is trained to see lies. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. I told myself the pressure of deep cover, long nights, and shared space was making me imagine things. But paranoia is just pattern recognition without proof, and I had started to see the patterns. Lara's phone was always with her. Always. Even in the shower, she'd wrap it in a towel and set it on the sink. She never left it charging overnight, just clutched it like a lifeline. I once joked, "What? You got state secrets in there?" expecting a laugh. She didn't laugh. Instead, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You know better than to ask that." That was the first moment I felt something tighten in my gut. The second came during a recon review. I was combing through drone footage from a deal gone wrong in El Alto when I noticed a flicker. Someone slipped a second device under a table. It didn't match anything in our known inventory. I flagged it, expecting Laura to agree it was suspicious. She didn't. Instead, she downplayed it. Said I was seeing ghosts. Called it stress. You're not in Langley anymore. Document don't make something out of nothing. But something was there. Another night, I ran a routine sweep for bugs in our apartment. Just protocol, once a month, standard practice. But this time, I found something. A small mic embedded inside a light socket in the kitchen. Professionally planted. High grade. I brought it to Laura. She barely blinked. Probably the landlord. Paranoia runs deep in this city. I knew that was bull. No landlord in La Paz had access to CIA-grade listening gear. Still, I didn't say anything. Not yet. I wanted to believe. Maybe I needed to. But my instincts were sharpening, honed from years of dissecting misinformation, identifying what's missing, not just what's there. She stopped talking in her sleep. That sounds like nothing, right? But Laura used to mutter nonsense, dreams, Spanish phrases, code fragments. No? Nothing. Not a sound. Like a switch had flipped. Like she was trying to train herself into silence. She started using code names I didn't recognize. Echo 7, Rook. Not part of any of our channels. I logged them in my private notebook. I wasn't sure what I was tracking yet. Just that I had to. And then came the camera. I noticed it during one of our market drops. A standard food basket delivery with a message inside a loaf of bread, classic brush pass. As I scanned the crowd, I saw a tiny glint from a rooftop. A microdrone. Civilian tech, but upgraded. It was watching her, not the package. When I brought it up later, she brushed it off. Maybe they're tracking the food vendor. You know how jumpy locals are. But she looked away when she said it. And when I checked her terminal history while she was out, just once, I found nothing. That's what scared me most. Not the lies. Not the behavior. The absence. No history. No cache. No autofill. It had all been wiped clean. That's not something you do out of caution. That's something you do when you know someone might be watching. Sometimes, truth doesn't scream, it whispers. It was just another Tuesday night in La Paz. Rain tapping the windows, cold air sneaking under the door, and me sitting in front of my laptop, sipping bitter instant coffee, combing through packet traffic from a cartel radio relay that had gone hot 3 days prior. Routine work. Pattern scans. Signal mapping. I was working through a firewall dump that we intercepted through a ghost node in Cochabamba. Most of it was trash, encrypted radio cross-chatter, scrambled drug orders, smuggler gibberish. Until I saw it. It was buried in a layered file group labeled with innocuous metadata. I almost skipped it, but something about the structure nagged at me, like it had been intentionally misclassified. I decrypted the outer shell, then the inner, then one more. That's when it opened. A string of text. Sloppy Spanish, probably auto-translated. Choppy phrasing. But the meaning was clear. Exchange confirmed. Target unaware. Package to be delivered on site. After that, he's finished. My blood went still. Target unaware. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I scrolled up, checked the signal origin. It wasn't cartel traffic. It wasn't DEA. It wasn't us. It was something else. Unlabeled. Routed through 3 obfuscated foreign relays. Professional-level encryption, but not American. Not military. Private. Rogue. I checked the timestamp. It was sent during one of Lara's solo operations last Thursday. She told me she was meeting a Bolivian customs informant. She lied. And the package mentioned? I checked the schedule. That night, I was set to deliver an encrypted USB drive to one of our field contacts. I thought it was a routine dead drop. It wasn't. It was a setup. I was the courier. And the cargo was bait. And then it hit me, target unaware. The way the message phrased it, the target wasn't the drop. It wasn't the op. It was a person. It was me. I sat back from the laptop, heart pounding in my ears. The air in the room changed. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my mission, my marriage tilted sideways. I didn't want to believe it. But it made too much sense. Lara's late-night trips. The unexplained devices. The wiped logs. The meetings she said were classified. The surveillance camera watching her, not the mission. The man behind the bookstore. The kiss on the cheek. I'd built my life around her. And she'd built her cover around me. I clicked Save As and encrypted the message to an offline drive. Then I shut off the lights. For the first time in 2 years, I locked the bedroom door while she slept beside me. She looked peaceful, innocent, like nothing was wrong. But I knew now. I was sleeping next to a woman who was planning to end me. And she still didn't know? I'd found the message. Trust isn't something that shatters all at once. It erodes, slowly, painfully, like water wearing down stone. One secret at a time. One lie. One moment of silence where there used to be honesty. After I decrypted that message, I didn't confront Laura. Not because I was afraid. Because I needed to know. Not just that she was playing me, but how. For how long. For whom. And how far she was willing to go. So I did what I'd done 100 times to foreign targets. Only this time it was my wife. I made her my mission. I began with a false data trail. A decoy op, an entirely fabricated dossier on a supposed CIA mole operating under deep cover in Santa Cruz. A ghost I invented from nothing but backfilled with just enough credible data to look real. I dropped the file into our shared folder with casual sloppiness. I even labeled it unverified, eyes only, to make it look juicy and accidental. It didn't last 24 hours. She accessed it, modified the timestamp, deleted it. 2 days later, I intercepted a packet bouncing off an Eastern European relay node. Anonymous, encrypted, but carrying the exact fingerprint of that file. A perfect match. And I didn't need any AI to tell me who leaked it. She had. Next, I gave her space to move. Told her I was being sent on a 48-hour recon op in El Alto. I packed a bag, left the apartment at dawn, and checked into a no-name hostel under a fake ID. While she thought I was 60 kilometers away, I was 10 blocks from her, watching a live feed of our apartment from a backdoor I'd programmed into the building's Wi-Fi router months ago. 11:07 p.m. She made a call. Russian, not fluent, but clean. It wasn't just conversation, it was tradecraft. Ghost is active. Canary hasn't sung. Yet. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. Canary. That was my old code name. An inside joke from a handler back in Caracas who said I sang too much during interrogations. It hadn't been used in years. Not even Laura knew it. Or so I thought. My chest burned. Still, I didn't move. The next morning, I came back home like nothing had happened. I kissed her cheek, told her El Alto was a mess, joked about fake IDs and bad traffic. She laughed, made coffee, wore my hoodie like she always did when she wanted to soften me. But her eyes, they didn't soften. They calculated. From then on, I tracked everything. I cloned her phone, installed a signal mirroring app through a flash sync while she showered. I hacked into her encrypted cloud account by exploiting a biometric spoof I'd seen once in Prague. Everything looked clean. Too clean. Wiped. Sterile. Sterile like someone who knows they're being watched. Still, cracks appeared. I watched her deviate from planned ops. Take side routes. Make sudden detours. One night, she visited a man posing as a Bolivian antiques dealer. Another, she lingered near a foreign consulate she had no official business with. Every deviation, I logged. Every anomaly, I documented. Every password, every protocol she breached, I stored them all. And at night, I played my part. I made dinner, brushed her hair from her eyes, let her fall asleep on my shoulder. But inside, I was crumbling. I was living with a ghost. Not the memory of who she used to be, but the haunting realization that she never was that person at all. And I was no longer a husband. I was surveillance. And my heart, caught somewhere between rage and a slow, grinding grief. But I wasn't broken. I was preparing. Piece by piece, I was building the net. A digital snare made of shadow logs, spoofed packets, and strategic leaks designed to look like mistakes. Breadcrumbs for her to follow. She'd think she was pulling strings. But soon, she'd realize she was following mine. Every spy has a blind spot. For some, it's arrogance. For others, greed. For Laura, it was control. She had to be the one holding the reins, the one steering the lie, the one managing every thread in the web. So I gave her something to control. It started with a recovered hard drive, an old SSD I found during a mock sweep at an abandoned safe house in El Alto. I let her watch me bring it home, stash it in my desk, label it pending decrypt. Just enough to spark curiosity, just enough to tempt her need to intervene. She took the bait faster than I'd expected. That night, while I pretended to sleep, I watched her through a reflected lens, an old pair of glasses on the nightstand, rigged with a microcam. She crept to my desk, opened the drawer slowly, quietly. No gloves. No hesitation. She plugged the drive into her laptop. What she didn't know, What she couldn't have known was that the drive was laced with a layered worm. The moment she accessed it, her machine created a shadow copy of everything. Her keystrokes, open sessions, command prompts, background connections, all routed through a tunnel I'd laid weeks earlier, disguised as routine diagnostic pings. In under 3 minutes, I had access to her entire digital profile. Not just what she showed the world, but what she kept in the dark. I traced outgoing traffic to a remote node in Zurich. Clean, disguised under an NGO's IP block. But I broke through. What I found on the other end confirmed everything. Encrypted messages. Dozens of them. All in her syntax. All signed with a private key that matched a fragment I once saw hidden in her necklace charm. She had been transmitting data to a shell server operated by a private intelligence group, one not sanctioned by any government. A mercenary ring. Not Russian. Not Chinese. Independent. For profit. And very, very dangerous. She wasn't a double agent. She was freelance. And I was her golden goose. Her credibility came from handling me, from extracting real intelligence under the cover of marriage and selling it piece by piece. My reports, my interpretations, my field analysis. It all had value. All monetized. But now I had proof. I didn't react that night. I waited. I watched. I let her finish her charade. 2 days later, I crafted one final fake transmission, an urgent alert suggesting the CIA had discovered a leak in La Paz and was preparing an extraction. I routed it through a buried agency node and ensured it would bounce just close enough to her listening radius to look accidental. She took the bait. By midnight, she triggered an outbound signal. Same Zurich node. Same key. She sent a warning. Compromised. Accelerate phase 3. Target extraction no longer viable. She meant me. She was trying to cut and run. But I had her. Every byte. Every packet. Every breath of betrayal documented, copied, and ready to detonate. The trap had closed. And she still didn't know. I was already handing the news to people with far sharper teeth than me. It was time. I'd watched her lie, cheat, manipulate, and betray for 2 years. I'd loved her through all of it, even after I knew what she was. But this wasn't about love anymore. This was about truth and justice. I wasn't law enforcement. I wasn't her judge. I was just the man who wouldn't let her vanish into the smoke. The trap was sprung. The evidence was airtight: metadata, communications, geologs, voice intercepts, and server access records. Her entire double life archived and encrypted across 3 drives, with mirrored backups already secured on foreign nodes outside her reach. Now I just had to let the right people in. I contacted the multinational task force we'd worked with during joint ops in Bogota, an off-the-books alliance between intelligence agencies from the US, Germany, the UK, and Brazil. People who understood the gray lines, who didn't flinch when the enemy wore friendly credentials. They didn't ask how I knew. They just asked for proof. And I gave it to them. By sunrise, Interpol had a provisional warrant. Zurich issued a data seizure request. And the CIA, well, let's just say they finally took an interest in one of their own being played like a pawn. All that was left was the timing. She made it easy. Lara always had an exit plan. I knew she'd try to disappear once the signal went out that La Paz was hot. I'd already flagged her alias with airline watch lists and uploaded her dossier into a passive surveillance queue at the airport. But it wasn't enough to stop her. She was too smart, too smooth. She used a secondary identity, European, forged documents, biometric spoofing. Nearly flawless. Nearly. I was sitting in a cafe across from the terminal when I saw her. Dressed like a tourist, hair lighter. I shaded. She looked almost innocent. Almost. She moved through security with the grace of a ghost. But ghosts don't realize when the cameras aren't blind anymore. 30 feet past the last checkpoint, she sat at her gate, boarding pass in hand. She thought she'd won. Her face was calm, unreadable. Then it happened. For terminals at the Bolivian International Control Center lit up with her real dossier. The file I had compiled, complete with code aliases, drop points, payment logs, audio fragments, and a direct line to the Zurich node. Her face, her real name, her crimes. Within 60 seconds, a call was made. Interpol agents converged from 2 gates. A local security officer approached from behind. One reached for her arm just as her boarding group was called. She didn't scream, didn't run. She just turned and saw me. I wasn't hiding. I stood across the glass divider between food court and terminal. Our eyes locked. There was no hate in hers. Only shock. And for the first time, maybe regret. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. As they cuffed her, she looked over her shoulder. "It was never supposed to be you," she mouthed. I didn't answer, because I was done listening to lies. And just like that, the woman who spent 2 years building lies out of loyalty was escorted out, surrounded, silent, stripped of control. The plane took off 20 minutes later. She wasn't on it. And I finally breathed. Some truths don't need words. They just need silence loud enough to end a chapter. Lara was in custody. I knew the exact time she was processed. 8:42 a.m., Bolivian local. Interpol moved her to a secure holding facility outside La Paz, jointly administered by the Bolivians and an international oversight unit. Her diplomatic credentials were useless now. Every thread of her deception had been unraveled, exposed to light. And still, part of me wanted to see her again. Not for answers. I already had those. But for closure. The day after her arrest, I returned to the agency field office and formally terminated my affiliation. No more analyst duties. No more covert ops. I handed in my clearance card, shook a few hands, and walked away. After years of lies and shadows, I was done. But not before making one stop. They allowed me 10 minutes. Supervised. No contact. Just one side of bulletproof glass, a microphone, and her waiting. She looked different. Not in the way she dressed. She wore the standard detainee jumpsuit now, but in the way she carried herself. The poise, the perfect posture, the cold control, gone. What sat across from me was a woman without a mask. And without power. The first thing she said was, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I said nothing. She leaned closer to the microphone. "They approached me years before you and I, before Bolivia. I thought I could control it. Just do small drops. Feed them old intel. You weren't supposed to get involved. But I had been involved from day one. You used me," I said. "You married me." She flinched. "I cared about you." I believe she thought that was true. I believe she had somehow convinced herself she could love and betray at the same time. "But you can't. You tried to have me eliminated," I said calmly. "That's not love." She didn't argue. She just looked at me with eyes that, for once, weren't calculating. "I didn't know how to stop," she whispered. "And when you started looking too close, they made the call. So you sold me to save yourself?" She looked down. "No. I sold everything because I didn't think I had anything real left. Until it was too late. And there it was. Not an apology. Not even guilt. Just the worn-out echo of a woman who lost the game she played too well. My 10 minutes ended. As I stood, she spoke again, soft, almost like a reflex. "What happens to me now?" I didn't turn. "That's not my mission anymore," I said. "You're just another file now." She didn't follow me with her eyes. She just stared at the wall, like she'd already accepted it. By the time I stepped back into daylight, I felt it. The weight lifting. Not because she was behind bars, but because I finally understood something I hadn't for 2 years. Lara was never the woman I thought she was. And now, I didn't have to keep pretending she might be. Justice didn't roar that day. It arrived quietly. And I walked away, finally free to live without lies, without masks, and without her. It took me 36 hours to leave Bolivia behind. No ceremony. No long goodbyes. I packed what mattered, my encrypted drives, 2 sets of clothes, a photo of my brother and me from before the agency, and one well-worn paperback that reminded me there's still wonder in the world. Then I boarded a one-way flight to Reykjavik. Why Iceland? Because it was quiet. Because it didn't ask questions. Because in a world drowning in noise, I needed somewhere that felt like silence. Somewhere I could rebuild, not just a life, but a self. My new apartment is small, clean, modern. It has tall windows and floors that creak just enough to remind me I'm not living in a sterile safe house. I make my own coffee now, real coffee, not agency rations, and I drink it while watching the fog roll over the harbor. There's something about the Icelandic mornings, gray, cold, honest. They don't pretend to be anything they're not. Just like me. I work as a cybersecurity consultant now. Remote contracts, mostly. I help small companies and NGOs build systems that governments can't break into and criminals can't tear apart. It's honest work. No espionage. No betrayals. Just code, clients, and clean logs. Some days I miss the adrenaline. The chase. The puzzle of human motive. But then I remember how it ended. I remember her eyes across that glass divider. And I remember what it feels like to sleep without checking the locks twice. I still carry scars. Not all of them show. I double-check exits when I enter restaurants. I sit with my back to the wall. I use 6 layers of encryption on everything I touch. And yeah, I still run diagnostics on my own network weekly, just in case. But I also read more now. Listen to music. I go walking along the coast, letting the cold air bite my cheeks, watching the sea crash against black stone. It reminds me that beauty can come from pressure. That peace isn't absence of conflict, it's presence of clarity. I've made friends here. Not many, just enough. And sometimes, when the wind howls and the snow taps at my window, I find myself whispering thank you. Not to her, not to the agency, but to the part of me that didn't give up, that chose to build, not burn. I don't know where Laura is now. Last I heard, she was being held awaiting trial in The Hague. She's not my problem anymore. I don't need justice from her. I found it here, in cold mornings, and honest work, and nights of undisturbed sleep. The agency used to say, no mission ever really ends. It just changes shape. Maybe they were right. But for the first time in a decade, I'm not just surviving a mission. I'm living my life.